Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, it's in Abuja that we're going to have to start this morning, considering the reports of delayed flights and all of that. Poor weather conditions arising from Harmattan rays has definitely been causing a significant number of flight disruptions, and passengers traveling from Abuja to other parts of the country appear to be caught in the middle. Correspondent Terry Kumi filed in this report. Maybe you should take a quick look, and then we'll come back.
The newly discovered Omicron variant of COVID-19 had little or no effect on the local travel plans of Nigerians. The domestic wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport is packed full with travelers, typical of the Yuletide. Flight fares have more than doubled and in some cases tripled this period, but passengers do not seem to be getting their money's worth. Following reports of cancellation of flights, we asked some passengers about their experience.
Of course, I've had my flight to Asaba rescheduled thrice already. In fact, I almost missed it this morning. I actually went into my email by chance and saw that it's been rescheduled for the third time.
My flight was supposed to be 11:35. So when I came here, they said it's now 3:05. So I'm going to wait for a complete 5 hours. So I'll be sitting here now. I can't even board till 2 p.m. I didn't even receive text message. So I'll be sitting down since after 9.
I heard the flight that will even pick us just left Abuja to Lagos, and it's the same flight that will come back to pick us.
One passenger is understanding of the situation, but wants airport authorities to do better.
I know that we do have challenges in the country, but I must have to commend the staff of this airport. The airport looks clean, but however, I know that we need some improvements that has to do with organization.
While airport authorities and airline operators are unavailable to speak, the former Director General of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, Dr. Anthony Anuforum, says Harmattan could hamper flight operations.
There is what we call the station minimum. That is the minimum visibility below which it is not considered safe to fly in or fly out an aircraft. The traveling public should not see it as inefficiency or bad thing. It's about safety.
It may be agreed that these unexpected operational realities could cause flight delays and cancellations, but travelers want to be notified in good time when these delays and cancellations are to happen. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
No, that's something really concerning, and the options are not so very exciting as well. At least that's what some people would say, what with cases of kidnapping and all, especially on the roads. Air traffic seems to be the one that is safest, at least considered much safer than the ones on the roads. And one would just wonder then, where will help come from? Malpa.
Am I supposed to have the answer to that question, Ayo? But indeed, I want to believe that when the Yuletide comes in, it's something that the airport authorities really need to take cognizance of. NCAA, FAN, and perhaps even CPC. I don't know that at the airport, you see in some places they put up a passenger bill of rights, but it's sometimes just, you know, for your information, that's your rights. The question is, how do you get it enforced? I know that there's a Cevicom desk at the airport. Does it really work? I want to think that, you know, even though many times of the year people face disappointments for a number of reasons. I have faced disappointment at our airports here in Abuja, and even before you can get help, it can be cumbersome. But during the Yuletide, during the festive season, I want to appeal to the authorities to step up customer service. The airlines need to step up their customer service. The authorities, that's the government authorities at the airport, also need to step up their own services as well, because this is a period when people are trying to go and meet their loved ones. Yes, we understand that the weather can, be a problem at this time. It can be a bit difficult because of the haze, which is usual of this time. But it will be good to get a bit of comfort knowing that the people who are keeping an eye on the operators of airlines to ensure that they're not shortchanging customers unnecessarily. We know that this is a time when they are going to be making brisk business, and yes, I'm sure they want to do that. But it should be done in a manner that is fair to themselves and the customers. So, for instance, if a flight is really, really delayed, and there's that same flight that is going to maybe take those who were supposed to go in the morning, who went in the afternoon, and is still going to come back for those who have now been delayed till evening, there needs to be some measure in place to ensure that the people who have now been left stranded are taken care of. I know that some of the airlines will argue that they look after their passengers, but oftentimes that will be after the passengers have complained, bitterly, and then you saw how sad some of the respondents in that report looked. In fact, and how inconvenienced they felt about what was happening to them. I sincerely hope that we will continue to get better as we saturate the space with more capable airline operators. Quite a few of them have been advertising in recent times. Looks like they're set for customers, telling customers that they are ready for them. I want to believe that they will upscale their services. And those who are lagging behind, those who perhaps need some help or a push, would also, take a cue from those who are ahead of them and see how it is. We know that the airlines did suffer a great deal from COVID-19, and quite a number of them are struggling. And this is Nigeria, where the space, let me put it that way, the space was needing more operators in it in the very first instance, or even more capable operators. That you now have something as big a setback as COVID-19. We do know that quite a number of airlines have struggled, but be that as it may, there's been a year plus at least to recover, and there's been some time to plan for this season. So it is really inexcusable that customers are still holding the short end of the stick when we have Servicom, when we have CPC, the FCCPC, I think that's what they're called. We also have FAN and NCAA to ensure that the Customer Bill of Rights, which they have enumerated, needs to be obeyed. So let us hope that the coming days, because it is not over yet, the season is not over, and this is something we intend to keep up doing, to ask how customers are faring at the airports. Just let you know that we have our eyes there and want to believe that perhaps as we wrap up the Yuletide, because the New Year celebrations are still coming. Some people who didn't travel for Christmas will want to travel for New Year. Let us hope that the airlines and the services generally in our aviation sector will be far better to improve the experience of for consumers and customers, so that they're able to travel in safety and at least with some pleasure at the minimum. Ayo.
Well, it's at least gratifying to know that there's something that is being done. There is some communication, which is a relief. But then we should still be asking questions around those options, because if the roads are an option, at least one would have been able to factor in that, okay, there is going to be the Hamilton haze that could disrupt flights, and then people might be able to plan better. But then, as we always say here, the authorities do have their jobs cut out for them. Let's go to the papers now, and we'll begin with the Guardian newspaper. And, well, my colleague did begin the story by talking about the pandemic, but that's the lead of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Prepare for another pandemic. COVID-19 won't be the last. United Nations warns. Stories on page 2. Excuse me. Massive new bird flu outbreak could be 2022's deadly pandemic? No, please. Does anyone want to hear that right now? 10 million Nigerians get first dose as WHO laments missing global 40% vaccination target. China, Germany impose new lockdowns to curb Omicron. That's the lead of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Now that picture is, to use Marquez's word, quite telling. It's on the front page. That abandoned refuse bin at Balogun area of Idumota in Lagos. I believe this is a job straight for the headquarters of the Lagos Waste Management Authority. Right above the nameplate, Bayelsa spill. Leak impossible without interference. Experts insist. Now the question I'm asking is, do we factor in the long-term effect of these things on the people who suffer? Well, that's the story you have right there. And a number of other stories on the bottom strip. One of them, you ought to be statesman, not tribesman. Obasanjo tells Clark. Stories on page 3. More on the inside pages. That's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Well, Vanguard has this. Budgets, 26 states eye more capital projects in 2022. Federal government, 10 states to spend more on recurrent expenditure. Federal government, 36 states to spend 26.6 trillion naira in 2022. Allocate more funds to recurrent expenditure despite worsening development indices. North, Central, Southeast proposed least budgets. Southwest, South propose highest budgets. North, Central, Northeast to spend more on recurrent expenditure. Southeast, Northwest state allocate more funds to capital expenditure. So if you have an eye on the summary of the federal government's budget, which we've been told will be signed on Friday, and what it is like at the subnational level, perhaps Vanguard newspapers will be your choice this morning, because it looks like they're taking a bird's eye view of the budget of not just the national government, but also that of the subnationals as well. So you might want to read the story, excuse me, on page 5 to see a breakdown of it all. We do know that a number of states are also trying to keep to that January to December budget cycle, and hence they're able to put this together for you. You also see a number of other stories at the bottom here. Shagamu Benin Highway checkpoint removal will ease commuters' frustration. So while we're also talking about the airports, there's also the roads to consider and what is happening on the roads. And quite a number of people have been complaining about the number of checkpoints, which should be ensuring security, but sometimes toll gates. So page 10 might give you details. You also have this one. Autumn to Buhari consults Nigerians as you did with the Electoral Act Amendment to tackle economic security challenges. Okay, the story is on page 12. Jonathan flushed out Boko Haram from 14 Borno local government areas, not Buhari. Clark insists. So politics is still there for you. This tragedy is here as well. Very sad story. Family of 4, 3 others perish in Niger boat mishap. It's a page 6 read for you. Certainly our hearts to those who have lost loved ones in this season. Let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
Flip to the Nigerian Tribune, and it's back-to-back, you would say. Obasanjo replies, Edwin Clark, oil, other minerals don't belong to locations, they exist, but to Nigeria. As a quote, the constitution that affects Niger Delta region affects Zamfara State, where gold is found. And if anybody at the federal level has remissed in implementing the constitution, then that is a different matter. That story is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And right under the picture you see on the front page, Jonathan's minister counters Amechi. $550 billion economy handed over to Buhari. Stories on pages 2 and 3. Former president attracted $35.25 billion foreign direct investment, he adds. Jonathan, not Buhari, flushed out Boko Haram from 14 local government areas. Clark replies, Lai Mohammed. All we want is peace. But then, the stories are on pages 2 and 3 of the paper this morning. COVID-19. Candidates under 18 not required to produce vaccination card. That's according to JAMB. Let's find the story on page 5. Been talking about Lassa fever for a while. Lassa fever cases rise to 92. New deaths recorded in Bauchi, Ebonyi. Let someone get ahead of this. Well, following up that story, Itunu Babalola story is right above the nameplate. Family, FG reject autopsy result, demand justice. Find the details on page 26. Cote d'Ivoire policeman reported to Interpol. A number of other stories you'll find on the front page. On the back page, AFCON. Osimhen may not play in Cameroon. That's ascribed to Napoli doctor to join Eagles camp January 3. Find the details on the back page and a number of other stories you'll find interesting. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
Daily Trust has this on the front page. They're also following that story for you. Obasanjo to Clark. Niger Delta can't claim oil ownership while in Nigeria. Insists all resources belong to country. Ex-president writes, it's attributed to Professor Kari. Page 5 will give you all the details. You'll find a number of other stories at the bottom there. Electoral bill components not good for Nigeria. That's from the presidency. Just beneath the nameplate, Lassa fever death toll hits 92. It's moving faster than that of COVID. So we need to be very careful in this season, particularly those who are going to the rural areas. We need to be careful where and how we're getting food to eat. Look at this. Itunu federal government family reject autopsy, demand justice from Ivory Coast. Is also a page 8 read for you. And look at this. FCTA to revoke titles of 435 abandoned buildings, 600 plots. Okay, page 4 will give you details. Let's leave it there for the newspaper.
The Leadership newspaper is interested in politics, and it leads with this one. Southeast political bigwigs eyeing 2023 presidency. The pictures are there, and there are those who will say, wait a minute, we're not even in 2022 yet. Well, apparently we are. Stories on page 4, and of course, all those pictures are there. Right under that story, you also find this one. Direct primaries will be financial burden to parties. Presidency insists. Says only APC, PDP will benefit. Find the details of that on the front page, and it continues on page 7 of the paper this morning. Right under the nameplate, 4 months to deadline, 11 PFAs battle to meet 5 billion naira recapitalization. Operators target mergers, acquisitions. More of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And there is this one, justify your promotion. Army tells new generals. I guess we'll wait to see how that goes. That's the Leadership newspaper this morning.
Past this, Clark, Buhari, beg your pardon, how Buhari APC encouraged return of Boko Haram. Says Lai Mohammed used propaganda to oust Jonathan. We're looking at New Telegraph. Yes, that's it. You'll also find on the front page, Chidoka to APC, Amechi, president inherited $36.4 billion, 4 trillion naira budget. Says economy on sovereign debt default. It's a page 3 read for you. There continues to be reactions from or to the comments of the Minister of Transport here on Hard Copy. Hard Copy is a sister program to Sunrise Daily's program, where the Minister of Transport was reported to have said, or had said, that what was left for them in 2015 when the APC government came in was just what was going to run the government for about 3 weeks, nothing more. Well, a number of responses have been coming in to that particular comment, and the latest is from Osita Chidoka, who was a minister in the previous government, and this is what he says. President inherited $36.4 billion and a 4 trillion naira budget, says economy on sovereign debt default. It's a page 3 read for you there. You also find this particular story, COVID-19. Candidates below 18 years to produce evidence instead of vaccination cards. That's according to JAMB. So even though you don't have to be vaccinated, you'll have to show evidence that you're under the age of 18. That's what JAMB is saying. Look at this. Identity. Federal government tracks 51.7 million account holders through BVN as banks register 6 million in 2021. Number of other stories along the line of politics, and if you're looking at health, they have a strip at the bottom for you. But let's leave it there for New Telegraph newspapers.
Nigerian News Direct has this one on the National Development Plan. FG seeks 348.1 trillion naira to create 21 million jobs in 5 years. That story is on page 3. To lift 35 million out of poverty. Well, don't forget that we still had since 2018, or no, 2019, I think, that position of government to lift 100 million Nigerians out of, I think it was 2018, to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. I guess the clock is ticking. Maybe this is part of the plan. That's the lead of the story. Buhari to sign 2022 budget on Friday. Oil belongs to Nigeria, not Niger Delta. Obasanjo counts as clerk, and several other stories you may find on the front page of the paper this morning. That's the Nigerian News Direct today. Okay, Daily Times is next, and we have this one on the front page again. Presidency justifies Buhari's rejection of Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Says action meant to protect Nigeria's democracy from money bag parties, including APC. That's interesting. Stories on the front page, continues on the inside pages. Right above the nameplate, resource control. Obasanjo replies Clark, says, I don't hate Niger Delta. And a number of other stories on the bottom of the page this morning. Itinubu Balola, FG family reject autopsy, demand justice. Buhari to sign 2022 appropriation bill into law Friday. Factors that will shape stock market economy in 2022. According to experts, the story is also on the inside pages. And right under the page, you see Lagos sample collection centers on holiday amid COVID surge. Exactly what that means, you find the details on the inside pages. And that's the much of the papers we're taking this morning. And we're back right after now to take a review of an aspect of life that affects every single Nigerian. We're back now.
Northern Nigeria has been an epicenter of insurgents' activities, especially from Boko Haram and the Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP, whose violent campaign have risen with the emergence of splinter groups. Efforts by the government to launch major offensives to dislodge these groups from their strongholds have met a brick wall as they continue to launch attacks and engage the nation's security forces in brazen assaults. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, this year alone, a total of 1,440 students have been abducted and about 25 schools attacked. President Muhammadu Buhari bowed to pressure from several quarters for a change of guard in the nation's security hierarchy when he appointed new service chiefs earlier in the year to bring some vigor into the war against the terrorists.
I expect you to effectively deploy your officers and men to secure the country.
4 months after this appointment, disaster struck in Kaduna State, where the Chief of Army Staff, Ibrahim Attahiru, and other top military officers died in a plane crash. A dark chapter in the military's efforts at restoring peace. In what appears to be an exploit of a security vacuum, criminal gangs in the northwest scaled up kidnappings for ransom, targeting boarding schools.
What will I tell her? What will I tell her?
The states mostly affected by these attacks are Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Niger states, with some of these students still in the hands of their abductors. The oil-rich Niger Delta region was not without some security challenges as well, notably activities of oil thieves and economic saboteurs. In the second quarter of 2021, the coordinated operation of the Southwest Security Network, codenamed Amotekun, came into effect, and several bandits making their way to the region were apprehended. Also, clashes between farmers and herders over land have spurred the formation of ethnic militias.
Don't fire from there! Don't fire from there!
In the southeast, violent activities and killings by gunmen suspected to be linked to secessionist groups assumed an alarming dimension. The sit-at-home order, which is observed every Monday in Imo, Enugu, Anambra, Abia and Ebonyi states, literally grounded economic and social activities in the region.
This is the time Buhari should sit up and tighten his belt to make sure that no matter your statute, if you have been found wanting for aiding and abetting, equipping, financing crime and criminality, it should be brought to book.
The Nigeria police got an early Christmas gift from the president when, in fulfillment of one of the demands of the NSAS protesters, the Federal Executive Council approved an upward review in the peculiar allowance for police officers and men with an increment of about 20%. When the upward review of their pay takes effect in January 2022, a lot will, however, be expected from the police across board in the discharge of their duties.
And that's what we're doing this morning. We're doing a review of how the year the year 2021 went in terms of security and where we currently are and what our expectations can be for the future with regards to security as well. Taking into cognizance the fact that we're entering a political year, as many like to say, a precursor to 2023, which is an election year. Joining us this morning to help with that review is Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, who is a former Director, Army Public Relations, and also former spokesman of the Nigerian Army. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, and compliment of the season.
Yeah, sometimes it's easy to forget that we're still in the Yuletide season. Compliment of the season to you as well. This is where we currently are. Our correspondent has tried to summarize, in great. And it's sometimes very difficult to summarize the activities of 365 days into a small report. But I think basically the essence of what happened this year, the challenges that we faced this year have been captured. It doesn't matter the region you turn to. It would seem that every region had its own fair share of problems. But I think that the singular thread running through all of the regions is people feeling unsafe, especially with kidnapping and banditry on the rise. From the northwest, which was relatively safe before now, to north central, which also experienced a great deal of that with the schools that were attacked, and even down south, where we were seeing that these bandits increased their own activities, kidnapping for ransom, etc., leading to the creation of state, I don't want to say policing outfits now, because the state's governments continue to deny that what they have is state police or even regional police. But we've seen some outfits, some security outfits by states in the south to try and fight this particular menace. How would you say that the federal government, because they are still the ones with the biggest responsibility with regards to the use of constitutional force, how would you say that they have fared with tackling the challenges that we faced security-wise?
Well, I think if we are going to assess, it all depends on the perspective you are looking at it from. And first and foremost, if you look at the various security challenges, take for instance, the counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism effort. I think the federal government has not fared badly. For instance, we have witnessed incremental increase in the efforts of the military and security forces. We have never had it so unprecedented, to the point that as of yesterday, over 23,000 Boko Haram and ISWAP fighters and their families surrendered. And so you can understand that actually a lot has been achieved in that regard, to the point that they are now surrendering. And of course, it is not just because of anything. It was because of the concerted effort, the combination of both kinetic and non-kinetic effort. And I think the challenge as regards to that is the issue of how do we deal with it, because this is most unprecedented. Yes, when you look at the northwest, for instance, the issue of banditry and kidnapping seems to, linger on. But just recently, with the injection of new equipment and weaponry into it, I think there are kind of semblance of progress that we have been witnessing, because people on the ground attest to the fact that things are getting better as compared to what they used to be before. However,
in the northwest of the country?
Yes. Regardless of whatever it is, there is need to do more, because the average Nigerian is concerned about his safety and welfare. And in as far as much he or she is concerned, he should be able to go about his or her own business without let or hindrance. So if there is any apprehension, definitely we have not fared much. Therefore, there is need for, more concerted effort in terms of the injection of more, injection of more impetus on it. And again, if you look at it, unlike in the past, there is a kind of excellent synergy of effort among the military and security forces, unlike before, that tends to be destructive. But what is needed actually is the involvement of other components of Nigerian society, particularly some arms of the government, especially as regards to the criminal justice system, because bulk of the problems that we have, well, I know it stems from the fact that there is issue of good governance, but the criminal justice system need to be invigorated in the sense that the issue of justice, the issue of deterrence is not there. So people do go about performing criminal activities simply because they know that nothing will come out of it. Even if they are apprehended, the next thing they will be on the street. So basically, when you look at it, you may not give it certain, percentage, but I think they have not fared badly, even though there is still more room for improvement.
Why wouldn't we give it a certain percentage? I mean, I was just going to ask you, if you were to score the different regions in terms of how we fared, because of course there will be an aggregate score at the end of the day, but if you were to look at the security challenges that we faced in each region, which sometimes seems to be unique to that region, how would you say that the security agencies have fared in regards to that?
Well, if it is security agencies, given the prevailing circumstances they found themselves, they have fared very well, in the sense that if you look at it, first and foremost, we neglected the policing system. And that is exactly what brought us to where we are now. Now, you are involving certain part or aspect of the security architecture, particularly the military, into areas that ideally it should be for the police. Now, if you are using the same standard to judge them, I think you are just being unfair to them. But if you look at it again, the issues of human rights abuse and all the rest, they are no longer there. And the issues of years within the last, maybe first, second quarter, just like your reporter has analyzed, there were issues in the southeast. Take, for instance, sit at home, attacking police facilities, even the Department of State Services and what have you. But within the last quarter, we were able to have a Christmas that we can say that is adjust to be hitch-free. So that in itself is a plus. And I think what we need to do is to build. We look at what makes it that safe. Why don't we improve in whatever we have on the ground so that we can be able to achieve, acceptable level of, security given the population of this country and the circumstances we found ourselves. But no matter how hard you try, unless you address the root causes of some of these problems, you'll be going round a vicious cycle.
Indeed. Well, let's quickly flip this to Lagos now. I know my colleague Ayo also has a guest in our Lagos studios. Ayo.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, we have with us Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, who is a former Army officer, and he's a security risk management consultant and defense strategist. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Ayo.
Well, again, let's just as we have asked the Brigadier General, a general assessment of the security apparatus of state in the light of both reported and unreported cases of insecurity in different parts of the country. How would you say we have fared in 2021?
Thank you so much, Ayo. As a matter of fact, I would say 2021, I don't think it will be an overstatement if I say to an extent some level of relief was beginning to, emerge. Or do I say some level of hope that, look, things could be better or things are really getting better. However, I must add this because I don't want to just go about saying nearly everything General Usman has just said, because otherwise those are the areas I would have actually loved to have commented on. But I just want to maybe add one or two things to what he has said. And what is it I want to add here? That is that despite all efforts which we've been able to garner in 2021, frankly speaking, the impact on the ground is yet to be fully felt, especially by those who actually are wearing the shoes.
When you say those wearing the shoes, are you talking about the security officials or the average Nigerian?
The average Nigerian out there who is vulnerable in the ungoverned space and so on. Not you and I who are far off from the northeast here in Lagos in our air-conditioned homes, and we can just look at newspapers, watch the televisions, analyze situations, and so on. I'm talking of those who are actually feeling the pinch. There is no time I travel home without tears dropping from my eyes. when you see relations and you say, Jesus, are these my relations? People who have left their homes for how long? So the point I'm trying to make here is that, look, yes, fine, we have made certain efforts, but I must say this, the impact on the ground is yet to be fully felt. And why is it so? It's because of the depth of the problem on ground, the issues, I mean, you know.
But there are those who will also argue, my apologies, there are those who will also argue that it will seem like the challenges are growing branches, just evolving from time to time, you know, in different ways, manners, shapes, and forms. Well, you've talked about the impact of insurgency, but then there are those who will always reference kidnapping, banditry on the road.
I know you are taking a lot of words out of my mouth. I wish you had just allowed me to continue. Okay? And where was I about moving into? I was about moving into the known facts that, look, to a greater or larger extent, we know there is poor or lack of governance out there. All right? The administration has got to do a lot more in reaching out. Governance must be seen to be taking place. A situation, for instance, where in certain communities, Nigerians who are so vulnerable have shown some interest or shown some level of loyalty towards terrorists who are now collecting tax, towards terrorists who are now providing certain services, be they health services or whatever, to communities who hitherto never enjoyed some of these services. And to that extent, the communities are beginning to feel, oh, even far more comfortable with these guys. It is an indication that we have failed. I am saying we because I see myself as part of the lot. We have failed in providing for our people. If now they are even preferring those we see as terrorists. I just use that as an example. It's happening everywhere. I mean, if anybody wants to contest that, okay, go ahead. You keep fooling yourself. We better listen to the truth, walk by it, investigate these things, see if they are true, and see what we can do about it. Okay? Unemployment. I'm looking at some of the extraneous issues which we're coming up with now. Unemployment is also there.
Sorry, but before you go to unemployment,
yes, please.
The information you just gave now about people preferring, you know, those we
feeling
call
more comfortable with terrorists. Yes.
Is it that information is unknown to the security?
There is nothing unknown. Yeah, these are well-known facts. These well-known facts. It's a matter of we're now acting on it and making sure we're able to correct some of these things.
So what could we have done that we haven't done, and what would you say should be done?
What you could have done as a government is that even before this took place, you could have provided governance.
Okay, now it has happened.
Now it has happened. Fine. We'll get our forces to go in there, see how we uproot these guys, and then begin to do the right thing immediately. Governors up north have abandoned for long, I repeat. Serially, governments have abandoned their primary responsibilities of meeting up with the social contract they have with the people. Security and welfare. Those are the two branches of the social contract, as spelled out by the Constitution. Before all this happened, what are the fundamentals? What actually led to all this? Poor governance. We are still talking about nearly 13,000 Almajiris on the streets in the north. What have governments done about it? What are the governors doing about it? We must face up with realities and see how we address these issues. Otherwise, we clear this set of Boko Haram and think it's over. Another group is coming up. We must find a way of seeing how we can provide for these kids now. Be it vocational training centers, whatever, and so on. Something has got to be done.
Now, the issue you raised about the Almajiris and all now.
Yes, please.
It will sound like that's like another, you know, army of insurgents. Forgive me for using that word coming. If nothing is done. So,
yes.
Now, we are reviewing our activities
Yes,
in the
sir.
year.
Yes.
Now, this information also, I always express this confidence in our security apparatus, that there, with all of the investments made, all of the trainings, all of the expertise, I have no doubt that they have what it takes to get the job done. The question then is, in the year 2021, knowing what you just said now, that if we do not address the challenges of providing security and welfare for these younger ones now, we are literally creating a time bomb. Now, in terms of how we have handled that in 2021, what would your assessment be of especially looking at the possibilities of worse things happening in the future?
Ayo, you're on the same page with me. You are talking about my constituency, the military. I am so proud of the Nigerian military. We have one of the finest, one of the best. I keep saying it anywhere. Even when things were really down. Okay? Even when things were really down. Looking back at our performance, this is the same army I fought with in Liberia. This is the same army I fought with in what's it called, Sierra Leone. This is the same army I operated with in the Darfur. This is the same army I operated with in the Bakassi for over 3 years. I know what stuff the Nigerian military is made of. So when I say the Nigerian military is one of the finest, I know what I'm talking about because I've operated with them. That is where I belong. So, that is where made me.
So what then is the shortfall?
The shortfall, of course, is leadership at the strategic level, period. Be it both at the national and subnational level. Leadership issues. It is unfortunate, I must say this, Ayo. It is unfortunate that our selection system for leadership is so defective that it often, let me just finish, okay, that it often throws up our very worst amongst us into such positions.
Is it the leadership among the security operatives that you're talking about now?
Political leadership. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, the military receives its orders from the political leaders.
There's only one, and that's the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
Thank you for being specific. But I'm talking about leadership at the strategic level, both at the national and subnational. We could go about defining who.
Okay, well, we have someone else joining us from our studio in Benin. Solomon Arase also joins us this morning. He's a former Inspector General of Police. Thanks for joining us this morning. Mr. Arase, I'm just wondering, your assessment, first of all, of our security operations in the year 2021, given all of the challenges that we have to contend with. Your constituency, the police, is the primary agency of government responsible for security in the country. So, in your assessment, how have we fared?
Well, thank you, Ayo, for having me. Let me quickly say that there is no country in the world where you have a crimeless society. And it is true that the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of its people. And that we have already, from the social contract theory, we have already incorporated into our constitution. Also, you also have the constitutional provision that members of the public also have a responsibility to assisting the law enforcement officers in their day-to-day activities. We've really faced a lot of existential threats this 2021. When you hear the number of persons, both law enforcement officers and civilians that have been killed, you start wondering if our sense of humanity has been diminished. Nobody's longer surprised, when you hear about 20 killed, 30 killed, 40 killed, and all those stuff. And for the police, I think we just have to take a look at just what the general said, how we throw up leadership at the strategic level. The strict bureaucrats, they usually draw inspiration for their leaders, who are how the instructions they give to them. And since the NSAS, the Nigerian police officers they've lost that self-confidence. They've lost that indomitable fighting spirit that they used to have. And I was wondering, why did we allow that to happen? If policemen were killed during the NSAS, the channels and other, broadcasting stations, you were able to capture some of those things, when the carnage was taking place. The NSAS couldn't have happened in the first instance. It was because the command and control structure of, the SAS officers was lost. Let me quickly tell you that the SAS, the federal SAS as we used to know them, was centrally controlled. The men were well trained, they were mobile, they were highly mobile, they were motivated, and they had the commissioner of police who was supposed to be in charge of them, from Adeliji Adele. That was what the structure was. And by 2017, we saw that the whole thing had now been diluted. An officer in Abuja now said, we are going to start sending officers to state commands to go and head SAS. Who were these officers? Superintendents of police, chief superintendent of police, who were not answerable, to the commissioner of police. So you see, once you have this gap, this lacuna in the strategic level, you always have these issues. And because we were not able to arrest those people who killed those police officers during the NSAS crisis, then, we now embolden those people who now move to the southeast and start killing our men. So you see, the issue is we just have to take a rethink about how we manage our internal security management. As I said earlier, there's nothing like a crime-free society, but, there must be that strategic approach. The officers must be mentally mobile. They must be able to, know the trends and patterns of crime in the country. It's not just choosing one strategy as the strategy for dealing with internal security management. Now we all romanticized with community policing. I say community policing is the only strategy you need to deal with internal security management. Other strategies, only Lagos has been able to actually conceptualize and operationalize that when they came up with the neighborhood watch. There must be that community-based approach towards, insecurity. We must be able to win the hearts and minds of the people into the system. So, I think we have to go back to the drawing board, see how our policies, and processes are, jazzed up, so that we'll be able to have, the way we are going. I'm really scared. I'm really scared. I won't lie to you.
Well, there is a lot more in what you have said now. At least you've cited an example of one state that seems to be getting it right. But then there are those who will be asking questions around the command and control of that apparatus and several others. We'll take a few more of those on when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Just before I throw this to Abuja, I'm sure that Malcolm, my colleague, would also have some questions for Mr. Arase. Mr. Arase, you were talking about, example of one state that has gotten it right. But then there are those who are still talking about the fact that, look, whatever it is that whichever state governor can do, they cannot control the police as it seems. And consequently, and it would seem like this year was particularly set aside for that, asking for state police. But before we go into some of those other issues, the example you cited about SARS, the NSARS, didn't just start in 2021 or 2020. There are those who are wondering, how did we get here in the first place? It dates as far back as 2015, when people had been calling for a rejig, a complete overhaul of the SARS, and nothing was done until it combusted, so to speak, in 2020. And, of course, the aftermath of which we have seen in 2021. So in terms of the general outlook, structure, formation of Nigeria's police system, What do you think we should have done or we could have done better in 2021 to get better services from the force?
Law enforcement officers, when you talk about law enforcement, you are talking about there must be consequences for crimes. When there are no consequences for crimes, then you are creating a state of anarchy. I don't agree with you that the NSAS agitation started in 2015. 2015, we did all we could to rejig the operational procedures of NSAS. They were training. We ensured that if you go and take a look at the statistics of extrajudicial killings between 2014 and 2016, you discover that it was drastically reduced. But we insisted that for anybody, that life is sacrosanct. For everybody, any policeman who kills any Nigerian, you must face, the criminal justice system. We try you in ugly room, prosecute you, and that one sent a message that you cannot do such things. But as I said, the command and control of that section was lost, towards the end of 2016, and which evolved into the 2017 when the ISSs was. You remember that in 2015 there was a technical platform that was set up. Criminal response units. This was supposed to put the police at the domain of public accountability, where people could report cases against police misconduct. And it was very effective. And the men, knew they were being monitored by members of the public. But, when the idea is, if you are analog, a strategic leader and you are analog, you discover that your operations and the command and control you give to the bureaucrats, who are the inspectors and rank and file on the highway, are also analog. So that is where the whole problem, emanated from. We just have to think about our recruitment policies. We have to think about our training. Can we start, democratizing, the training curriculum for officers, and emphasis on physical, training is already becoming obsolete. Contemporary policing involves some little knowledge of sociology, some little knowledge of psychology, some little knowledge of public relations. These are what you need to infuse into the policing system. Policing culture throughout the world is always talking about us against them. So you discover that that has also been a very, very big problem. You're talking about the control and command of governors. Look, I will tell you for sure that there is no governor, who will give a commissioner of police the necessary support and directive to deal with issues of crime and criminality in his, environment that will not do it. The problem has been, political interference with the command structure, and once you have that, then that is where you see the resistance, coming in and saying, okay, we have to get some directives from. The governors have done very well. A lot of them, they buy vehicles, they buy fuel. They even institute, insurance schemes for their men. I'm sure the Rivers, Lagos, and some few other states, that have the financial muscle to do that. They've reached out to the police, but then, because of the political situation we have found ourselves, where different political parties are managed by various states and at the federal level, there's always that conflict. But it doesn't mean that commissioners of police don't take instructions or take orders from the governors. It depends on what orders you are giving to the commissioner of police. Some could be very, very excessive. Some governors they want to, through the police, prevent their political opponents from having access to secure political space and all those type of things. So I think It's a whole political culture has to change. The governor should know that after 8 years, if you misuse the police force and you leave, whoever comes in again. So if there are sanctions, there are safeguards for dealing with people who misuse power while they are there, I think this issue of police-governors relationship, will be properly managed.
Well, it's good to see you, Ijerase. Let me quickly ask you, 20% increment has now been approved for the 20% increment in the salaries of police officers has now been approved by the president, even though we understand that that might need to be approved for in a supplementary budget. However, how big a morale booster would you say that increment is in the light of the challenges currently before the Nigeria police force?
Thank you, Mark. We should commend the president for taking that bold step. The police reforms, starting from 1999, during the Obasanjo era, came up with the same issues that NSAS threw up, the same issues that we are still talking about, the police reform. All those things were properly articulated by the Damadani, reforms. There was a white paper issued by the Obasanjo regime. Then when Yar'Adua came in, he set up another panel again, another police reform panel again, under MDSU, to take a look at, those sets of facts that we're talking about. And there were some low-hanging fruits that we could have easily, leashed on, that could have, mitigated against what we later have as the NSAS issue. The salary was one, their welfare was another, the barracks were another, the vehicle something was there, the capacity of the men were there, the training were there. So one must commend the president for at least taking on that, that issue of 20% salary increase. But for me, salary alone, does not, ensure enough welfare incentive for police officers that will dissuade them from gross misconduct. I give you an example. If a policeman is going to retire and he knows that he doesn't have a fallback position, he doesn't have a good accommodation to go into, he doesn't know how to cater for his, kids and kin, the tendency, for him to always want to seek, quick measures is always very, very high. So that is why, we started this housing scheme. We had 100 units of housing scheme in 5 states of the Federation. And we targeted the inspectors and rank and file, those people who are always referred to as the street bureaucrats. They are the ones whose misconduct usually leads to all these issues we're talking about. When I said, okay, you buy them for 5 million, you start paying with you have a mortgage scheme that you start paying. Once you join the force, you start paying for those houses. So that by the time you are halfway in your career, you already have a place that you can look up to. Then you now say, okay, they are children. Most policemen, they get killed, in various operations across the country. You now say, okay, can we institute a scholarship scheme for these children of these police officers who have died, and you make it competitive? Now we have police schools all over both secondary, both primary and secondary. Then the first set of people we gave was 325 officers. We now said, okay, you see, the one area where the police officers, the street bureaucrats usually come in conflict with members of the public are the highways, the roadblocks. Why do you have to block the highways? I have always been saying it that roadblocks are not good crime prevention strategies. Why can't we buy more vehicles for them, like the safer highways we started, to make them crisscross these roads, at intervals, and make sure that the vehicles are full, make sure that the men who are on those vehicles, they have some launch pad, something like that. You see, so there are some other areas. It requires, being mentally mobile, at the strategic level. getting some. So salary alone does not, is not enough to really get these boys, on stream. Another claim, the law enforcement officers, they have something like credit cards. If they go into some supermarkets, they are subsidized. They, go into public transport, they are subsidized. They go into railway stations, they are subsidized. We could start thinking about along those lines. It may take a long time. We say we don't have resources, but any country that is not able to take care of their law enforcement officers, then the political gains you think you are going to get here and there, may not be, feasible. So I thank the president for thinking, about at least taking one aspect of those reforms we have had, the reports we have had since 1999, and implementing that aspect of it. But there are still a long list of things to be done.
What a long conversation we've been having with IGRSA. But let me come to our guest here in the studio, Brigadier General. I'm sure that you've listened to Colonel Stan Labo, and he's elaborated on some of the things, the underlying issues which need to be taken care of. 2021 doesn't look like we made much progress in taking care of some of the underlying issues. For instance, street children, still an issue. The issue of ungoverned spaces, the issue of the social contract between government and the governed. These are still the issues, some of which he has highlighted. And you certainly can put in your own opinion if you think that we actually made progress in that area. But just in case you don't think we did, going into 2022, which we know is a precursor to a political year, how do you think that we can bring down pressure to bear on those who are holding political offices to say these are the challenges, and it could get worse if we do not address them going into 2023?
Well, yeah, I rightly agree with you that it has been a year of mixed contents, and but I think we should be optimistic in the sense that, given the recent happenings and the fact that barely 17 months to the general election, there is a need for us to really put our acts together. Otherwise, it will even affect the political process or the democratic process in this country. And I said it sometime back in Ibadan, that unless we deal decisively with security challenges, we are toying with the issue of the general election. And now, so things to be done. Almost everybody knows the problem, and I think what it requires is concerted effort to deal with these issues. And now, one is the fact that we need to go down the root causes of some of this problem, because they are intricate and woven into our, corporate existence as a nation. And I know that some organizations and individuals are making concerted effort, and the government ought to take lead in dealing with this issue, because it has the mandate of the people to do it. Take, for instance, the security challenges. Yes, we have equipment, and I like what IGP Arasa has said. There are things to be done, and beyond the welfare package or the increment in the police salary, 20%, I think we should also look at the administrative makeup of the police. Take, for instance, what are those arrangements for the police to perform their duties? And I can tell you that a divisional police officer gets just 14,000 naira to run a whole division. Are we really serious about detecting and preventing crimes, talk less of, when it happens, dealing with it? This is just one aspect. Then the issue of time-tested conflict resolution mechanism. Now, we have the proliferations of small arms and light weapons within the Nigerian society. Yes, a center has been created, and they are doing all they could to make sure that they, mop up these weapons. But why is it that an average Nigerian feel that he would rather resort to use of arms against dialogue with each other? Then, apart from that also, of the three tiers of government, it is only the federal and state that seems to be working. The local government seems to be in comatose, and deliberately so. Unless we go back and resuscitate the local government system, we will definitely be having the same problems we are having, because they act as buffer. They are closer to the people. They know the problem. Therefore, with all the rulings by the Supreme Court and all the rest, I think we should allow the local government system to function effectively and efficiently. And thirdly, I made mention of our criminal justice system, or the component of the Nigerian society. Institutions should be strengthened, particularly the judiciary, and deal with the corrupt practices that makes it not to function effectively. And if people know that if they commit an offense, they will be, disciplined, so to speak, according to the judicial process, and the average common man, if he or she knows that if anybody trample on his or her rights, there are remedial procedures that are effective, I believe this will go a long way in tackling this. Then the issue of equipping, the security challenges are fluid and dynamic, and we have to move with time. And thankfully, Arasa has made mention of the fact that people should not be analog. This is digital age. Even the governance requires digitalization. And of course, the management itself requires, use of technology. Therefore, we should invite the use of technology in dealing with these security challenges. But most importantly, 65% of the total populations of Nigeria, I think they are youth. To what extent are we investing in these vibrant people that seems to be the future of this country? So when you address this issue, and if you look at it also, those involved in most of these criminal activities that, let's say even terrorism and insurgency, kidnapping and banditry, except for their leadership, who should be in their late 30s or in their early 40s, they are all youth. So if we have a better way of managing our youth, creating opportunities for them to excel, because you see the power of Nigeria lies not only in our diversity, but the fact that we have a very vibrant human resources that are very, very creative and industrious. Creating an enabling environment will make people to channel their energy positively for the well-being of Nigeria. So there's so many gamut of things that need to be done to ensure that the year 2022 will be a better year in terms of security and general well-being of the Nigerian society as compared to, the existing 2021.
Okay, let me go to Colonel Stan Labo in Lagos. And I know that, Colonel, there have been times in 2021 when you have shed tears, even on national TV, because of how emotional the situation has made you. However, I'm wondering, going into 2022, first and foremost, I do not know whether from the time when you have complained, whether you've seen some incremental progress, one, and then going into 2022, what are some of the low-hanging fruits that you think that we can quickly work on? Because yes, we know that the work with regards to security is humongous, but if we're to look at quick wins, things which we can easily do to win back hearts and minds and say that we are on the right path, what would you be looking at?
Thank you, Marque. As a matter of fact, I must say yes, to some extent we have seen some level of improvement. We cannot want to run away from that fact, but like I said, the impact is yet to be felt on ground. The improvement we have seen, I would say, is known in most cases to those of us who are aware of happenings, probably in government, and the fact that there are deliberate attempts to see that some of these issues are addressed. But given the depth of the damage, the impact is yet to be really felt on ground. And what do we think can really be done as we move on, like you rightly asked, quickly? I would say that why are we still delaying whatever we need to do concerning the enhancement of manpower within the security sector, looking at the armed forces and even the police? I am not seeing, or I have not yet seen, a reasonable level of urgency, okay, being exerted by this government to see that we enhance on manpower. Manpower has become a major problem with us in the military. Likewise with the police. In the first place, is the manpower issue in the police that has partly, been responsible for we drafting in the military to begin to play a policing role. Now the military itself has become so overstretched. There is a need for some manpower. A good number of us in the course of discussions like this, at fora of this nature, we have always been able to come out with even short-term solutions and long-term solutions to these manpower issues. What is still stopping us, for instance, from drafting in or bringing in from our reserve, assuming we have a reserve pool, okay, within the crop of veterans, able-bodied men who can still come in to fill in some of the gaps? Bring in some of these men and get them to sign a 3, 4, 5-year contract with the Nigerian state. Okay? It's done everywhere. And they sign this contract and go in there and be able to assist. These are men with some wealth of experience behind them. I'm talking of able-bodied men, not people like us who are putting on weight already. Okay?
What do you think? You sighed earlier when IGPRC talked about some people being analog as opposed to being digital. And the Vice President has also spoken about the need to deploy technology into, security apparatus and all of that.
Right.
Don't you think deploying technology would be better than deploying more manpower?
Ayo, we need both. Okay? And it is, to me, it's still a very annoying issue that up to this moment, technology is not playing the sort of role I expect it to be playing in the ongoing war in the Northeast. I expect, what are drones, for Christ's sake? By now, these things should be everywhere. I wonder what is really holding us back from taking some of these steps. Okay? And today we have fantastic drones in the market out there. Drones that will be engaged, carry out surveillance capabilities, drones that will be able to engage for you, and so on. All you need to do is sit at an operations room and, give out the commands and so on. Pressing the buttons and the drone will be busy doing all the job, sending in results for you and so on. By now, we should be engaging drones.
Okay.
By now. Okay, and I did talk about the issue of manpower, and we should be addressing also, seeing how we can enhance welfare. And just like the former IGP said, thanks to the president for the 20%, he was able to avail the police. I think more should also be done, like I said. It's not just the monetary aspect alone. That should also be replicated on the military and so on. And just like he also rightly pointed out, some of these men who are still in service look out and peep at their colleagues, veterans, and seeing what is happening with them, and begin to ask themselves, hope I can take care of such situations by now, so that I can keep something for myself when I come out. What is the point am I trying to make here? I am looking at the veteran community within the Nigerian security sector and how they feel and what signals they've been sending out. The average retiree today, I'm talking of soldier retiree, not necessarily officers. I'm not saying you should ignore the officers, but I'm more concerned with the soldiers because their own plight is actually terrible. Okay. He's not a happy man with the Nigerian state. Okay? He has a lot of qualms to pick with the Nigerian state.
Okay. Well, there's so much to say on that one, but let me just take Mr. Arase's final words as well on this. And I'd like to be specific, Mr. Arase, on the issue of 2022, as my colleague has called it, is a political year, and definitely a lot more work for the police in ensuring that we prepare for the elections significantly well enough so as to, as much as possible, reduce all possible reasons for a breakdown of law and order. What would be your to-do list for the police and for the government?
My concluding shot would be that there must be consequences for crime. In a country where you don't have consequences for crime, and you allow these things, to foster, and it becomes a very big problem. There must be a paradigm shift of, the police perspective towards having to assuage the fears of members of the public. If you watch it, anytime the public is beginning to complain about, rising insecurity, what's the police authorities they do? They quickly mop up suspects, do a press conference, and say, we've arrested so and so. This is so and so firearms. Then you start, I will be waiting. I will say, when are these people going to be processed through the judicial system and sent behind the bars? And then are they not supposed to be consequences for crime? So I think the police management should start thinking about that. Because when you deal with issues of crime and criminality decisively, you send a message across. People, they start, thinking that, yes, if you do, then the capacity of officers, our investigating capacity, has to be jazzed up. I've had occasion recently to discuss that with President IG, and I think he's interested. Yeah, the training opportunities are all over the place, where you can get these men properly trained. The operational listing is always very, very good. The IROT I set up has been very, very potent and in getting people arrested. But what of, there must be a step further, of getting these people, processed through the judicial
Just one quick
system.
thing, Mr. Arase, just before we go, just one very quick thing. And you seem to have spaded around it a little. But can you be a little specific about the issue of state police that so many people have been agitating for over time? What's your take on it? Is it time?
Policing is local. Let me just say that policing is local. That is why we try to get non-state actors from various, from the various communities to assist in crime issues. But the issue of state police, for instance, what Ondo State has done, you can see that since this Amoteku came up, they've been able to halt, the decline into a state of anomy in that state. But then we have to also be very careful so that they don't take on the toga of now becoming an alternative law enforcement agent. You see, the issue with state police is that, yes, it is something that is feasible, but also you start wondering, do the political majority and of the political class, can they afford such things at this particular point in time? I think that is where we have to be very careful. I'm sure you've read stories of where some governors have tried to prevent their political opponent from coming into their various states, preventing them from having, political space. So they must be tolerant. They must be that they're intemperate. Once you have a political class that will always want to muzzle their opposition, then the issue of state police can be a very dangerous, issue. But ordinarily, as I said, security is local, it's environmental, so those are things that we have to start thinking about. So that, with time, we'll be able to develop our political culture to that.
Certainly. Well, we have to thank you very much for being a part of this program this morning. Solomon Arase is a former Inspector General of Police. Thank you so much for your time. We've also had, Colonel Hassan Stanlabo is a former Army officer, security risk management consultant, and defense strategist. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you.
Markwe.
And we've also been speaking with Brigadier General Sani Usman, who is a former Army spokesperson. Thank you so much for coming to shed light on the security situation this morning, and compliment of the season once again to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I wish you a new prosperous 2022.
Well, we all hope that it will be prosperous and safe for us all. We'll take a break at this moment and we'll be back with another topic regarding health security this time around. Please stay with us.
With more cases, thanks for staying with us, with more cases of COVID-19 recorded, and a number of things just seem to be happening, especially in Nigeria, a low level of compliance to safety protocols. Let's close today with a discussion on observing safety measures. And this morning, Dr. Tolu Olufunlayo joins us. She is Chairman, Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, and she's also a consultant public health physician. Thanks for joining us this morning, Doctor. Well, it would seem like the issues are varied. Rising cases, non-compliance with COVID protocols, and then we still have on our hands vaccine hesitancy. How is your community managing all these?
Well, thank you, Ayo. Good morning, everyone. Definitely, it's a major challenge for the public health community in Lagos and around Nigeria. But, you know, everyone, what we believe is that it's a multi-sectoral effort that it would take to get us out of the woods, or to get us to flatten the curve of this fourth wave that we have just gotten into. As you've rightly said, there are rising numbers of COVID cases in the past several weeks. And this had been anticipated by the various health communities or the health sector because of the trends that we have seen in the past, and because of certain factors such as increased travel and increased social gatherings, coupled with, as you said, the hesitancy to vaccines and non-compliance with or low compliance to non-pharmaceutical interventions. So all these combine to make, you know, the transmission of COVID-19 heightened in our own community or environment, just as it is in other countries around the world. So today, I think I'll just lend my voice to that of the other, you know, health authorities around Nigeria and around the world to encourage our viewers and everyone out there to please celebrate responsibly. That's the campaign that has been launched by the Presidential Steering Committee to encourage us as Nigerians to, you know, temper it down a bit this Christmas and New Year. I know we all are happy that we've seen 2021 to the end, or almost to the end, and it's been a very difficult year. We want to see our loved ones who may have come from far and wide. But it's important to say that we need to be alive to be able to do all these things. And for that reason, we encourage all of us, first of all, to continue to observe all the non-pharmaceutical interventions. WHO says do them well, do them all. They've not changed really. So they include sanitizing our hands or washing our hands frequently, covering our cough, which many people don't do anymore, use of a face covering, face mask, covering the nose and the mouth, and then, of course, avoiding large gatherings. And we also ask that people should get vaccinated. And in Nigeria, we are now offering, the government is now offering the booster dose to those who have had at least 6 months between their first 2 doses to go back and get a booster dose from either any of the public health facilities or selected private health facilities. These really are the ways by which we can curtail this wave, and we will continue to talk about this.
Well, if one is to take a look at the progression of COVID-19 in Nigeria from its beginning, especially from the very beginning, tapping the progression, this thing there would show us how the journey has been, and it's until now. And we also understand that there's been a little spike in the past few weeks. I mean, and especially in the wake of Omicron, the Omicron variant. In your opinion, would you say that there is convincing information out there for people? This information that you have mentioned, there are things that people are aware of, but sometimes the consequences seem to pale in significance because, maybe people don't see how severe it is. Or what are the things that you think people should really take to heart about this? Something one of the officers that we spoke with earlier, foreign persons in the clip we listened to, said something significant. The virus is not on vacation. The virus is not going to take a Christmas holiday. We are the ones that are on holiday. So what are the things that you think people should pay significant attention to, especially now, beside the things that you have mentioned?
Okay, thank you. I think what is important is for us to tailor our risk communication to the people. We really need to go back to the people to find out what they really would want to hear and how they want to receive the message. We need to involve the communities in formulating these messages. Now, remember that in COVID-19, the information that we have received is progressive because this is a new virus, it's a novel virus, and each day, each week, each month, we keep learning new things and the new developments keep coming up. For example, the recent Omicron variant of concern. So, having information come in pieces to people and in progression sometimes makes them doubt the authenticity, how authentic the information is. And besides that, we all know that due to some other factors, there's a lot of mistrust, distrust between the people and the government. There's also a lot of misinformation and disinformation that goes on social media. And the best way to, address this is really to go back to the people. So we need to do a lot more community mobilization. We need to do the bottom-up approach. And I can stay here and speak to the people, but the best thing is for us to take the people at the grassroots and engage with them. Then we'll hear what their issues are. We'll be able to get a lot of the mis and disinformation that they're receiving, and then we can address that with facts and, bring the information down to their level such that they are able to actually relate with the problem. You said that many people don't really see how COVID-19 relates to them since they've never seen anyone that has died from the condition, and it's not been as severe as we had predicted it would be initially. For that reason, there is need for that engagement. Some of the engagement has taken place, but I think we can still do a lot more, both at the government level and with other organizations such as ours, the Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria, amongst others.
Well, again, the microsite of COVID-19, covid19.ncdc.gov.ng shows us how we have dealt with this, how the cases have increased and tapered down over time. And one is when we look at the way the whole thing has been going, and the states or locations that have played up the most, they're also there. I'm just wondering, you talked about the risk communication being tailored. to the localities, especially the people that are most affected by these things. In terms of tailoring it, the NCDC, of course, will tell us that, look, we have been doing this. We've been trying as much as possible to focus this thing in the people's languages to the people where they are in the various localities. So how well would you say we have fared in that regard? That's one. Secondly, many people traveled from urban Nigeria to rural Nigeria, and from rural Nigeria to urban Nigeria, and that's going to be reversed when the Yuletide is over. What are the things that you would say people should be very, very conscious of, even now?
Okay, thank you for the double-barrel question. Let me start with NCDC. We work very closely with them, and especially with the Risk Communication Unit, headed by Dr. Diso at the moment. And we must say they're doing quite a lot. They definitely, as you said, they're doing a lot about rumor mongering, about tailoring the messages. But you remember that we are a nation of more than 200 million people. We are a very large nation. So it can't be done from the top alone. There must be that continuous engagement from level to level. And this is where grassroots mobilization, I mean, every grassroots organization should be harnessed in this work against COVID, this response to COVID-19 to mitigate it. If not, really, what is being done at the top will only be a drop in the pan because we are just so vast. So I'll leave that there and let me now talk about travelers going back and forth. I think I heard the other day on the program, one of your programs, where it was said that, people are taking this, virus into the rural areas. And of course, we know that the levels of vaccination and also compliance with non-pharmaceutical interventions in most of our rural areas is much lower than even in the urban centers where it's not really anything to write home about. So there is a real danger, and we don't want our vulnerable elderly at home to, fall ill from the virus at all. So what we would then say is, again, please avoid all non-essential travel. If you do have to travel, or you are in the process of traveling, because I know many people are right now moving up and down, please use your barrier methods, your mask, hand washing, and physical distancing. It's very worrisome to see that despite the fact that the government has said that, public events should be at about half capacity, we're still seeing people sitting elbow to elbow. I mean, probably sometimes almost sitting on top of themselves. These are, and of course also in indoor spaces. So avoid crowded indoor areas, and please, as much as possible, let where you are be well ventilated. These are ways by which we can mitigate the spread of the virus and thereby halt, the growing spread of COVID-19 and even the new variants coming up, because we have to, halt its transmission to be able to do that.
Well, there are those who will say, well, this is new. What about the ones that have been with us for ages? Lassa fever, cholera, and things like that. And, it would seem like we are paying so much attention to this COVID-19 and whatever other variants that come out of it, as opposed to Lassa fever and cholera that have been with us for donkey years. So what are we to do? How are people to react to that? Because there is a clear and present danger that's been with us for a long time, and then there is this new one.
Okay. Now, there are several ways to look at it. They are all very important. I mean, the DG of the NCDC recently said that the fact that COVID-19 is spiking doesn't mean that the other viruses are going on holiday. So they are all out there, and we have to take precautions for all of them. But I think the reason why there's a focus on COVID-19 is mainly due to the fact that it is a worldwide pandemic and it is novel. But you can see that we're beginning to settle now, and we're beginning to talk about not just COVID-19, but even all these other present dangers. And as you've rightly said, this is the time, the time of the year when we have the transmission of diseases such as Lassa fever, cholera, and cerebrospinal meningitis. Now, they all have slightly different modes of transmission, but the two key things for all of them are, one, the preventive measures, and secondly, for us health workers and for the community at large, a high index of suspicion of any of these. So, recently there was a very sad case with Lassa fever where two specialists at a hospital contracted Lassa fever apparently from a patient who was operated upon and infected by Lassa fever. So it's very sad, and I commiserate with those who are affected, their families, and the hospital. But I think we need to just continue to heighten the index of suspicion when we see things, and remember that we are no longer looking at fever being equivalent to malaria. Now, this is something that many of our communities do not really pay attention to. Someone had a fever, they say, oh, I have malaria, I have cough. But now we need to remember that there are so many causes of a fever or just a mild illness that should make us go to the health facility and get investigated so that whatever it is can be diagnosed early. And I think that would be my third point, early diagnosis. So we need to look at prevention for each of them, have a high index of suspicion, and thirdly, where unfortunately someone does contract one of these things, early diagnosis is key. So don't stay at home using herbal medications or home remedies, because right now there are so many things about us. So let me rest it there. Thank you.
Honestly, we could go on because I was going to, well, we're out of time. Otherwise, I would have wanted to ask you that, especially at a time like this when, common cold is common. And that's also some signs of COVID. I mean, it will send people into a lot of hysteria. But let's just go there. You have advised that people should go take some tests just to be sure, because early detection and early treatment would help to stave it off.
Yes, and use their masks to keep it away.
Yeah. Dr. Tolu Olufunlayo is Chairman of the Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria. She is a consultant public health physician. Thank you so much for your time this morning on the program.
Thank you.
Well, a few messages have come in, and we would not leave without taking some of them. On national security, Taiwo Isimikaye says, the Nigeria police and other security agencies have been at the receiving end of directives from our politicians and leadership. The politicians should have a change of attitude for humanity's sake.
Well, famous Timileyin says the armed forces should be careful about these mass surrendering. There may be another strategy to this. Remember Taliban and Afghanistan.
That is someone in there famous. On the review of security in 2021, Peter also says, talking about security in Nigeria, the police should learn the rules of engagement, which is don't shoot except shot at. As a police officer, you need to be friendly to the citizens. You protect, not being trigger happy or sinister about the citizens and causing inconveniences for them, especially on the roads. You don't point a rifle at an unarmed person. They should correct this.
And Orwell Brown, talking about the same issue, says, it all begins and ends with leadership. Accusing fingers will always be pointed at the political class. Every strategic appointment to a top position in the security system is endorsed and recommended by security commissions in the police, military, and paramilitary forces. These commissions know the best and weakest officers in their ranks. A system that retires the best brains in their prime and promotes mediocrity will not yield any tangible results.
And Bernard says about the same matter, buying millions of Super Tucano and other war gadgets can't solve Nigeria's insecurity problems. Solution to Nigeria's insecurity is employment. Government should provide enabling environments like constructing our highways and making power accessible and affordable for millions of Nigerian youth to be employed. Many children are out of school as we speak. The ones in school are not getting technical or qualitative education to survive in the harsh environment we find ourselves. That's Bernard Ejimbe.
Well, at the end, we know it's all going to be a joint effort, Ayo. But we all look forward to leadership steering the way and mobilizing and inspiring everyone to put in their bit. Well, we've done our bit this morning, and we thank you for sending in your bits as well. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and season's greetings.